Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Cepsa's 2019 results presentation. This is Gonzalo Sáenz, Cepsa's Head of Finance. Before we start, please let me take a moment to flag that financial information contained in this document is unaudited and certain figures are not IFRS. This webcast, including the Q&A session, may contain forward-looking statements. These statements reflect the company's beliefs, intentions, and current expectations concerning, among other things, the company's results of operations, financial condition, liquidity, prospects, growth, and strategies. Forward-looking statements involve risks, uncertainties, and contingencies that may or may not occur in the future. As such, forward-looking statements are not guarantees of future performance of the company. Please take a moment to read the disclaimer on the first page of the presentation. You can send us your questions through Slido during the course of the presentation. To do so, please go to slido.com and enter the passcode showed on the screen, Cepsa Results. You may pose your questions at any time during the presentation, and we will address them at the end of the session. I kindly ask you to please identify yourself when posting your questions so that we may refer to you when providing answers. Today's conference call will be conducted by Álvaro Badiola, Cepsa's CFO. So without further delay, Álvaro, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Gonzalo, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining us for today's Cepsa's 2019 year and results presentation. This is Álvaro Badiola, Cepsa's Chief Financial Officer, and it is a pleasure to present you our 2019 results. In today's presentation, I will be taking you through some of the key highlights of the year and provide you with some reflections on what has been a quite challenging environment. Let me focus first on safety, Cepsa's core value and a key element of our operations. We are all conscious of safety in all the places where we work, and we seek to install a culture among our professionals to ensure that taking risk factors into consideration becomes like second nature to them. As you can see in the top graph, as a result of our continued focus, we have managed to introduce significantly over the past few years the lost work day injury frequency ratio, which sets out the number of accidents resulting in working days lost per million hours worked. The graph below shows the process safety event rate, which measures the number of process safety events per million hours worked. In 2019, we managed to reduce the rate from 0.35 to 0.27, which represents a 20% decrease, with no Tier 1 incidents. Although these results show a positive trend, we are not satisfied at all, and we always work aiming for zero accidents, zero incidents. Now, moving on to slide 5, you may see the evolution of the main external variables that affect our business: crude oil price, refining margins, and exchange rate. During 2019, Brent oil price has been somewhat softer compared to 2018, trading in range around the $65 per barrel mark, largely influenced by supply restrictions and weaker demand. Refining margins have been lower in 2019 as a result of higher sour crude premiums and depressed light and middle cracks in the Mediterranean. As such, Cepsa refining margin has dropped from $6.1 per barrel at the end of 2018 to $4.3 per barrel at the end of 2019. Finally, the US dollar has been gradually appreciating versus the euro. A stronger US dollar has a positive impact in our business, which is predominantly US dollar denominated. Despite this challenging environment with lower market refining margins, 2019 results have been quite positive, thanks mainly to the integrated nature of our business model, with very strong performance of our upstream and marketing business units. Entering into the details and looking first at our financial performance, we have had an increase of 17% Clean CCS EBITDA in comparison to 2018, and there has been a solid cash flow generation with an increase of remarkably 75%. And at the same time, we have been able to achieve a significant deleveraging of our balance sheet with from 1.8 times in 2018 to 1.4 times in 2019 in terms of net debt to EBITDA. As a reference, during 2019, we have invested 924 million euros. Turning to operating performance, our upstream production has increased by 11% in comparison to 2018, and this was mainly due to the production ramp-up in our SARB and Ululu fields in Abu Dhabi. We have been subject to weaker refining market and, in addition, lower production due to heavy maintenance program during the year. We have seen a strong performance in our marketing business unit with solid volumes and margins, and a stable performance in our chemicals division with lower margins in certain petrochemical products. Finally, in terms of corporate events, in 2019, we obtained investment-grade ratings from the 3 major rating agencies, and we completed our inaugural bond issuance last May, which was 4 times oversubscribed, and as you know, we have recently issued a new successful 8-year tenor bond. We have successfully completed an optimization exercise of our banking facilities, harmonizing documentation and extending maturities. And lastly, as you might have seen in the press, in April 2019, Mubadala agreed to sell 37% stake of Cepsa to Carlyle. The transaction was finally completed in October last year, and in addition, in the beginning of this year, in January 2020, Mubadala has sold a further 1.5% stake to Carlyle. Please turn to the following slide for more details on this transaction. Since 2011, Mubadala, a sovereign wealth fund owned by the government of Abu Dhabi, has been Cepsa's sole shareholder. In April 2019, Mubadala agreed to sell a 37% stake in Cepsa to Carlyle, a transaction that was based on a valuation of the company of $12 billion. As part of this transaction, Cepsa transferred, and previous to the completion, its 42% stake in Medgas to Mubadala as a dividend in kind. Cepsa maintains its annual transport rights of 1.6 BCMs through this pipeline, and at 20%, which is 20% of the gas pipeline's capacity. Following completion of the transaction in October 2019, our board of directors is composed by 10 members, 5 of whom are appointed by Mubadala, 3 by Carlyle, and 1 independent director and executive director, our chief executive, jointly appointed by both Mubadala and Carlyle. Following the additional share sale completed in January 2020, at present, Mubadala holds 61.5% in Cepsa, with Carlyle holding the remaining 38.5% stake. Now let us look at our key financial figures of 2019 in slide number 8. Our Clean CCS EBITDA has increased substantially by 17%. Our cash flow from operating activities has also increased significantly by an 11%. Organic investments have remained quite stable versus 2018, with no M&A activity being completed during the course of 2019. Clean CCS net income has registered a slight decrease, primarily resulting from the low refining market environment, as previously has been mentioned. As per the main balance sheet figures, our equity figure has remained fairly stable, and the slight reduction is basically due to the Medgas-related dividend that we have mentioned just before, and our net debt has been reduced, derived from the strong cash flow generation that we have had during the year. Consequently, our leverage ratios have decreased, with net debt to EBITDA dropping from 1.8 times in 2018 to 1.4 times as of the end of 2019. On next slide, slide number 9, we look in more details at our Clean CCS EBITDA evolution. As previously has been mentioned, our EBITDA has increased by 17% versus the previous year. And this was mainly due to the positive performance of our upstream business with the ramp-up of SAM and Ululu fields in Abu Dhabi. Upstream accounted, in fact, for 46% of total group's EBITDA in 2019. the strong performance of our marketing business, and at the same time, we have been an impact from the lower refining margin environment. On the next slide, slide number 10, we have the bridge of our cash flow from operations to our free cash flow. Cash flow from operations before the working capital variation in 2019 has exceeded 1.7 billion euro. Working capital variation amounted to positive 306 million euro, with improvements in all three main chapters: inventories, accounts receivable, and accounts payable. Out of those 306 million euro, we believe that around 100 million is sustainable, based on a number of initiatives that we have launched during the year. CapEx for the year amounted to 927 million, below our guidance of approximately 1 billion per annum. Operating leases and net debt expenses amounted to 244 million euro. As such, and despite the challenging market conditions during the year, free cash flow before dividends has been 908 million euro compared to 520 million in 2018, which represents a remarkable 75% increase year on year. Moving on to slide number 11, we take a look at CapEx figures for the year. During 2019, we have made relevant investments in a number of optimization projects in the refining business, 252 million euros, as well as in the developments in the Abu Dhabi fields, 134 million euros. Looking at the charts, our maintenance CapEx in 2019 stood at 320 million euro, slightly higher than in 2018, and basically due to the scheduled shutdown of Gibraltar San Roque refinery. Growth CapEx amounted to 604 million, which includes the refining optimization projects mentioned earlier, developments in Abu Dhabi fields, as well as the acquisition of a number of service stations in the marketing business, the revamping of one of our major chemical plants in Spain, and the development of our first wind power project. Total CapEx amounted to 924 million euro, in line with 2018 figures, excluding SARP and Lulul investment. On the right-hand side, we show the CapEx breakdown by businesses, with a significant portion going to refining, which again, as we have discussed, is the result of a number of optimization projects, as well as the scheduled shutdowns of the main units of our Gibraltar refinery. Now, let's look to our net debt position. As shown on slide 12, as a result of the solid cash flow generation and EBITDA growth, during the year we have been able to reduce leverage significantly. At the end of 2018, our ratio of net debt to EBITDA stood at 1.8 times, and we have reduced this to 1.4 times by the end of 2019. This excludes the impact of the implementation of IFRS 16. In addition, we would like to flag the increase in our debt average maturity, which has increased from 3.5 years in 2018 to 4.8 years in December 2019, derived from the optimization process carried out during the year, as well as the access to the debt capital markets, which has allowed us to extend the maturities. I would like to highlight also our cash position as of the end of December 2019, which our liquidity stood at 561 million euro. And at the same time, the total liquidity position, cash plus available committed facilities, amounted to 3 billion euro. Moving on to the next slide, slide number 13, we may see the details of our net income for the year. Net income for 2019 stood at 610 million euro, decreasing versus 2018, and mainly this was a consequence of the weaker refining market environment. However, our integrated business model has allowed us to weather this challenging environment with strong performances of our upstream and marketing businesses, which together represent more than 50% of the group's results, as can be seen in the pie chart in the middle of the slide. Finally, the graph on the right-hand side shows Clean CCS to IFRS net income bridge. As you can see, IFRS net income stood at 820 million euros, mainly as a consequence of the positive impact of non-recurring items derived mainly from the transfer of our 42% stake in Medgas to Mubadala. In slide 14, let me just make some comments about energy transition. At Cepsa, we are very conscious of the changing environment and the challenges that our industry is facing. As such, we are actively working to change our business model to a more sustainable one, with a number of projects which we highlight on the next slide number 14. Moving from left to right, in 2019, we signed an agreement with Masdar to establish a JV through which we will jointly develop renewable energy projects in Spain and Portugal, focusing on wind and solar photovoltaic technologies with a capacity of between 500 and 600 megawatts over the next 5 years. In addition, we team up with Ionity, a JV of the main German car manufacturers, to develop a network of ultra-fast charging points at our service stations in Spain and Portugal. Cepsa will supply 100% of the energy to these charging points from renewable sources. During the year, we have also reached an agreement with Redexis, a Spanish gas utility company, to create the largest network of vehicular natural gas service stations in Spain. And finally, we have started to keep our service stations with solar panels to move towards a more sustainable network, and with the aim of being self-sufficient in terms of electricity consumption. Moving on to our final slide, slide number 15, we'll line up the key takeaways from this presentation of our 2019 results. In terms of financial performance, we would like to underline the 17% increase in our Clean CCS EBITDA, our solid free cash flow generation with an increase of 75%, and derived from this very solid, strong free cash flow generation, we have achieved a significant leverage reduction to 1.4 times net debt to EBITDA as of the year end. As per our operating performance, we have seen an 11% increase in our upstream production in comparison to 2018, and mainly due to the ramp-up in Abu Dhabi fields that has been according to the plans that we have. A strong performance of our marketing business unit with increased margins. The CapEx figures similar to those of 2018 with 924 million euro, out of which approximately one-third corresponds to maintenance CapEx. Steps towards a more sustainable business model through a number of initiatives across different business units. And for further details on Cepsa's results, I encourage you to refer to the press release which will be published right after this call. Thank you very much for your attention, and before opening the floor for the Q&A, I would like to take the opportunity to make an announcement. This announcement is that this will be my last appearance in front of you as Cepsa CFO. I will be stepping down, and from next Monday, Salvador Bonacasa will take over as Cepsa's new CFO. I have worked closely with Salva for the last almost 8 years, and I'm sure he will do his best in front of you, the investor community. It has been a pleasure for me spending these last 8 years at the company, and a real challenge every day. And before, as I mentioned, going through the Q&A, please let me leave Salvador introduce himself to you.
Thank you, Alvaro. Good afternoon. Let me introduce myself, as Alvaro said. I have been working at Cepsa for more than 35 years. My professional career began in internal audit and later in finance in corporate areas. Then I had the opportunity to be the chief financial officer of different business areas, first in the chemical area, where we merged different companies and created a common culture, and then in exploration and production area. During the last 5 years, I have been the head of the group's internal shared service center and member of the group's financial committee. In all this time, I have acquired a broad and deep knowledge of the Cepsa businesses, its internal structure, and its needs in the accounting and financial fields. But I have also been aware of the importance of new technologies and the need to digitally transform the financial function, path that we have already begun to take. In this new area, only my last words in this presentation is to thank Alvaro all the help and support in the past years, and I am sure for the next times. Thank you very much.